Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I'm your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Josh McCafferty today to discuss another damaging defeat for Wilfried Nancy and his Celtic side. It was going so well against Rangers at Celtic Park earlier on today. Celtic were 1-0 up at the interval thanks to a sensational Hyun Jung Yang goal, but ultimately lost the match 3-1 after another second half collapse. Goals from Chermiti and Mikey Muir for Rangers secured the derby victory for Danny Roll and his side. Josh, not nice again to be doing a show in these circumstances. It's actually been a while since we've done a live match reaction. We are trying to do more of them as we go deeper into 2026, but it started horrendously again for Celtic. It's not a great afternoon.
No, I thought the match itself actually started very well for Celtic. In the first half, they were terrific, played some very good football, and had numerous opportunities to kill the game. And that's essentially why they didn't win. If they took those chances, it could have been 2 or 3-0 at half time, and you would have struggled to see a way back for Rangers. But the 1-goal lead is incredibly dodgy, you could say. And Rangers in the second half took their chances, took advantage of Celtic's poor defending, and went on to win the game. For Wilfried Nancy, it's incredibly damaging. 6 defeats out of 8 games. I struggled to see a way back. I said I struggled to see a way back from after the cup final, after Tannadice, after Fir Park, and now after this defeat. It's so hard to see how he recovers this situation and gets the Celtic supporters on side. They're currently outside the stadium and very angry, and rightly so, after a poor second half display. I think that's the most concerning thing, Celtic, as well as they played in the first half, to come out in the second 45 and then be that poor. Some errors, obviously Tony Ralston for the, I think it's the second goal, doesn't cover himself in glory, neither does Austin Trusty. Schmeichel should save the third one for me, another error from him. But it's Wilfried Nancy who's continually picking these players to play for Celtic, and it seems right now that he is just as competent as the as the people who employed him.
Yeah, the individual errors are hard to ignore today, Josh, because I think the performance was fairly functional up until Celtic conceded that first goal. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of blame going around. I feel like it's one of those afternoons where the blame going around, I don't know if it squarely lies on one individual, two individuals. It's a collective failing at Celtic at the moment from top to bottom. I don't think you can ignore the players' part in the match today and how it unfolded. Likewise, I still feel like some of these players are pretty badly exposed by the way that Wilfried Nancy is setting the players up. Now, Austin Trusty, I think, had a nightmare 10 minutes specifically that, basically turns the game around in Rangers' favour at that point. But he is the only centre-back in the team as well, and those exposure moments will happen, particularly the second goal. I know he totally switches off. He makes a bizarre decision not to try and close down Chermiti. The first goal as well, the whole team, there's like 5 or 6 players that seem to switch off of that throw-in. You can't really account for that. It's bizarre, isn't it? Because they should have the motivation, the concentration to try and see this game out. But it felt inevitable to an extent as well, Josh. Now, both the sting of the equaliser felt inevitable, just given the chances that Celtic missed in that first half. And then when this team under Wilfried Nancy seemed to face a tiny bit of adversity, they just seemed to wilt under that pressure, Josh, and that's mainly the concern for me. I think as soon as Rangers equalised, I was quite buoyant about the way Celtic were playing, but as soon as Rangers equalised, I felt Rangers were going to go in and win this one because Celtic just haven't responded to these setbacks well under Wilfried Nancy so far.
Yeah, they don't have any character, which is very strange given who it was under Martin O'Neill. 7 wins out of 8, the performances weren't there, but they had character, they had dig, they had fight. And like you say, John, every time the Celtic side faces adversity now, that all gets sucked out. And that was clear today. Even Daizen Maeda has a chance just past the post after Rangers go 2-1 up, could have equalised. He had one that Jack Butland saved as well. But other than that, I struggle to think of any other opportunities that Celtic had after they faced the adversity of Rangers scoring 3 times in the game. And so, yeah, very, very poor, very, very concerning. Wilfried Nancy, I've listened to him on Sky Sports. I've listened to him on in his post-match press conference as well. I'm sure you'll get onto the comments. I don't think he has much else to say than what he did, to be honest. And strangely enough, or maybe it's not strangely enough, I'm not sure the Celtic board are going to make a decision today or tomorrow on this.
Yeah, we do have the Wilfried Nancy's press conference up in full on celticway.co.uk. I'll run over some of his comments. Now, again, this isn't me defending Wilfried Nancy, this is Wilfried Nancy defending himself, so don't confuse the two just because I'm reading it out. Yeah, he said the first half was outstanding offensively, but defensively also the commitment to win the ball back, the intensity that we put in. He said we should have scored more goals. He said the second half we wanted to do the same and we conceded one goal and a throw in, second goal and a throw in, the third goal and a throw in. This is the reality. I think my players deserve better for sure because of what they did in the first half and also when they started the second half. But the details killed us today. That was a consistent theme throughout Wilfried Nancy's press conference, talking about details and that Celtic are really close to turning things around. He was asked about support of the board. He said, he was asked, do you expect the board to continue to give you time and support you? He said his response to that was, we are together with the board. Wilfried Nancy still feels supported by the board. I think there's an inevitability that there'll be a massive furor around his future. I don't know whether that forces Celtic into saying anything, if they're going to say anything at all. Like we've seen quite a lot, specifically this year, just because the vast majority or the majority of supporters want something to happen, it doesn't automatically mean that the club are going to do it, Josh. Obviously, there was a lot of anger and apathy at the stadium. Both, as soon as the Rangers third goal went in, fans chanting all Celtic fans against the board. Then a lot of people walking out as well. So it's this kind of toxic mixture at the moment. And then obviously there has been protests outside the stadium as well after the match. It seems an unsustainable situation to me. I feel like the club have to act now. I think after 8 matches, given 6 of them have ended in defeat, a cup final defeat, this defeat against Rangers, I think it's impossible for Wilfried Nancy, even in a fortunate set of circumstances, to turn this around as it stands. That's just how I feel personally. But again, whether that means the board actually act and make a swift decision here is another story.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. It's going to be an interesting 7 days because Celtic obviously don't play until they face Dundee United next Saturday. So there is going to be an incredible amount of noise and pressure mounting on the club, on the board, and Nancy himself. He gave a defiant press conference yesterday before the derby that we've not even actually spoke about here because it took place after yesterday's morning briefing. That was quite incredible itself. But Wilfried Nancy has had every genre or type of game a Celtic manager can have in the space of this 8-match run. He's had a big European match, he's had a top of the table clash, he's had a cup final, he's had a tough away game in the league, he's had an away game in the league that he's expected to win, a home game in the league that he's expected to win, and a derby against Rangers. And to have a 25% win ratio out of all of those games is just simply not good enough. And for me, in my opinion, his position is untenable, same as you, John. But whether the higher ups of the club think that is another thing.
And actually, the board have positioned themselves. We talked about this other day of this kind of conflict between two imperfect choices. I don't think it's ideal to get rid of another manager this season in the midst of everything going on. Now, Celtic may well improve, but just the ramifications of that and what it says about the decision that the Celtic board made in appointing this guy, appointing him to a long-term contract, having to say goodbye to him within 10 games, is a damning indictment of the football expertise within the club at the moment. Likewise, persisting with him it looks like the worst of the two options at the moment, and just kind of delaying what seems like an inevitability. This isn't to provoke sympathy for the board in making this impossible choice because it's of their own making. They've put themselves in this position. But I do think, and my real worry about Celtic in general at the moment is, regardless of the decision made in the next couple of days, it will be a big decision. But I don't think Celtic are automatically going to get better regardless of what they choose. And that's the real concern for supporters, I feel like. Now, there will be a reaction if they do get rid of Wilfried Nancy. There will be an emotional reaction. Much of it will be happy because they'll feel like things can't get any worse, so they have to get better. I accept that. But I think the reality for Celtic as a club here is that the series of decisions that have been made over the last year have been fairly catastrophic in terms of the decline of the club. And actually, I think that is why the majority of supporters, or many supporters at Celtic Park today, were chanting against the Celtic board. Now, they can no longer say it's minority either, Josh. They've put blame on this certain section that they talk about. The group that they've pinned a lot of this blame on was actually banned from the stadium today, yet those chants and that anger persisted. So this isn't a small minority of Celtic fans who are desperately confused about the direction of the club. Everyone is. And it's hard to see whether the leadership at Celtic exists to try and guide the club out of this mess.
Yeah, and as much as we criticise Wilfried Nancy and the players, and rightly so, they're only part of the problem. The problems stem much higher up in the club than them, to be frankly honest. Sacking Wilfried Nancy would mean the Celtic board publicly admitting an error, and throughout their whole reign at this team, they've never done that. I can't recall one occasion they've done that. Dermot Desmond accused Brendan Rodgers of tearing the club apart from the inside, and he didn't even sack him. Brendan Rodgers resigned, technically. So that makes me think they're not going to get rid of him. And the majority of the problems are on their back in the decisions they've made over the past 12 months. January, not getting Brendan Rodgers a striker when he desperately needed one. The shambles of the summer transfer window, Brendan Rodgers then resigning, making the decision to bring Wilfried Nancy in at the time they did, and even appoint Wilfried Nancy in the first place, because even if he didn't start in the Hearts game, if he started a couple of weeks later, Celtic would probably be in the same situation they are. So as much as Wilfried Nancy deserves criticism for the decisions he's making on the football pitch and the players, what they're doing on the pitch, the higher-ups can't escape any criticism whatsoever.
Now, Wilfried Nancy remains insistent that he's going to turn things around. He was asked, what gives you confidence that you will turn it around? He says, because I watch every game and I see many, many good things that we did, like today again. It's about consistency. So my narrative would not be the same if it was not the case, but this is the case for the moment, he says. He says that's why he's a big believer that he's going to be able to turn things around, and they are going to be able to turn things around. He was asked about his repeated messaging. Now, he has said very similar things after almost all the games. There was a question from one journalist who said, to be fair, Wilfried, you've been saying the same thing since you've become Celtic manager. What is it that the players are not getting in your mind? He refuted the suggestions that they're not getting anything. He said it's not that they're not getting it. He said, Wilfried Nancy says he's with his players. He's not here to pinpoint who missed the chances because everybody missed. Again, it's the execution. I think that this could be better, and they work every day to do it. He says, I'm with my players. I want to protect my players. I know that they do the maximum they can do. After that, there's a moment like today, we have to be better in these details. This is what he feels. What's your thoughts on him saying that it's about details today? Is there an element of truth to that, in the sense of Celtic were so on top in that first half? Chances were missed. Outright chances for some of the forwards. Just some of the build-up play. There was opportunities when a player could be played in here and there that could have changed the dimension of an attack. Do you agree that it's small details, or is this just kind of a car crash unfolding, or is it both?
I think there is an element of both. If you look at the first half, small details tactically, Celtic were better. Even the small details in the football match, they were Celtic were first to every second ball, latching onto them in the middle of the park, exposing Rangers in behind. But then Danny Rowe makes some small detailed changes at half time, and Rangers go on to score 3 goals in the second half and win the football match, some of which have came from Celtic errors, granted, but Celtic struggled to get back into the game after that. So I feel sorry for Nancy to the extent that Celtic could have been 2 or 3-0 up at half time, and we're having a completely different conversation now. And that's not on him, that's on players like Johnny Kenny missing sitter after sitter. And you can blame Nancy for putting in Johnny Kenny, but he's probably the only option he has as a number 9, because as we've seen, Shinyamada has not been fancied by 3 different managers. So here's a question, John, and maybe open up to the comments. If Wilfried Nancy had a competent number 9 who could take their chances, hold up play better, do you think Celtic would have won the game today?
Yeah, I do actually, and I think that about a number of the games that he's played so far. But again, it doesn't. So I both accept that and understand that, but then that kind of almost has nothing to do with what I'm seeing. It's when Celtic face adversity in these games that's really bothering me. It's when they have these difficult moments that they don't respond to it, and he doesn't seem to be able to respond to it, and it seems to just be an inevitability about the way the games are going. That's how I feel watching Celtic at the moment. Now, Wilfried Nancy might argue that, these moments will change matches, and that, if they'd scored against Hearts in that first half an hour, then this entire thing can be different. But it's not, and he doesn't seem to be able to change direction or change the momentum that Celtic are currently facing. It's the same in almost. And what's worrying as well, Josh, is like we mentioned this kind of first half, second half thing, but that's not misfortune, because it seems to be a consistent trend under Wilfried Nancy, where a team starts to figure out how to play against the team, and then he's unable to make changes in response. You saw it against Dundee United. There was a very notable example where Celtic had control in that game. Again, missed chances, but they came back. As soon as they equalised, then Celtic just completely collapsed. And it's that frailty that I'm really worried about, because it seems to be both, I think, a symptom of the way he sets out his team, but also in the way that he's motivating these players or not motivating these players to be more accurate. That's my big concern.
Yeah, and what I would say as well is it's not sustainable. If Wilfried Nancy thinks that small details here and there and Celtic scoring at the right time in games would help him have more victories under his belt, If he really thinks that's the reason, then that is unsustainable long term for the club and for the team. So yeah, under Wilfried
it's
Nancy,
also unsustainable to have conceded 18 goals in 8 matches.
Exactly.
That's over 2 goals a game. So what is Wilfried Nancy saying? Is he saying Celtic have to score 3 goals a game just to pick up consistent victories? That doesn't seem sustainable either, and that's actually not that realistic either, is it?
No, and it's not going to win you the league title whatsoever. Celtic are 6 points behind. Well, they will be 6 points behind after the end of today. Hearts are currently 1-0 up against Livingston, I believe. So 6 points halfway through the season, just over halfway through the season. It is still retrievable. It's still salvageable if you had a manager who was getting better out of this group of players and who's not conceding whatever number you said, they're 18 goals in 8 games or whatever stupid figure it is. So I feel like if Celtic want to make this season a success, it still can be. I said this the other day, even before the defeat to Rangers, they need to make a decision quickly and remove Wilfried Nancy from his post. But as I've said throughout the show today, I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, and we don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, we're keeping an eye on the feeds, whether Celtic are going to release a statement, what they're going to say. For me, it seems the most productive thing to now just say, like, this is an experiment not working. Now, again, I admit that I said, even after this Mirren game, 3 games in the cup final, I said Wilfried Nancy should get 10 games. We're at the 8th game now, and I've not seen anything to suggest that this form is going to turn round in a way that Wilfried Nancy wants it to or expects it to. Now, he says Celtic are really close to turning around, but I just don't think there's enough evidence to back up that belief. And actually, when you keep saying that and fans keep being let down in this manner, it's not helping his case, I don't think. And it's not helping his case in just trying to do the same thing again and again and expecting something to just click into place. Yes, there are signs, there are patterns of some nice attack and play, some nice, combinations, first touches, quick passing through the team, progression, especially, on the counter-attack and transition. But again, Rangers left a lot of space to exploit today, and you would expect most teams to be able to do that against that Rangers team the way they played in that first half. So I'm not particularly thinking that he's massively transformed Celtic in an attacking sense either, despite chances being created. It's not as if they're unstoppable in an attacking sense. There's still issues with that build-up play as well, beyond the missed chances.
Yeah, definitely. And what's funny to me is that Wilfried Nancy said in his pre-match press conference, or he accused the media and the journalists of trying to kill him. You're killing him simply by printing these results. You can only go by what you're seeing in 6 losses in 8 games, 25% win ratio. Tony Mowbray in his time as Celtic manager had a win ratio of just above 50%. John Barnes was just above 60, I believe, too. So statistically, currently, he's the worst manager in the club's history. And that sentiment is probably true as well when you look at some of the performances on the pitch and the results too. So time could be up soon, but you never know.
Okay, folks, we'll leave it there today. We might be back with some sort of emergency live show if something happens with regard to the manager, but it's really the ball's in Celtic's court in that regard. They have to decide whether they even have a decision to make. They've been so dogged in their beliefs, even in recent years. Even if you think back to the dreaded COVID season where it felt like they took an age to say goodbye to Neil Lennon, despite a mountain of opinion in the weeks and months prior to that. So how long they take to take a decision, or whether they even say anything, we do not know. For me and for a lot of supporters, it seems like this is the end of the road for Wilfried Nancy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Celtic think the same as all of us, and that is their prerogative. They run the club, unfortunately. So until we hear any breaking news, we will be back on Monday morning, as always, with a briefing. We have full coverage of all the events happening at Celtic on celticway.co.uk as well. We thank you for joining us live for this impromptu live show, and we'll see you again next time on the Celtic Way.